Oh, I got a little reverb. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back for Oxygen to the Soul. This week's Pasha Matot Masai. We are continuing on this massive journey as the Jewish people are finally preparing to get into the land of Israel. They are given a bunch of laws that relate to Nidarim, to the laws of vows. Now, I really believe that there's one theme that unites these two parshiot together, and I want to share them with you. This is my original idea. I don't know if it's true, but I think it's true. You tell me what you think. Let's start with this. How awesome is it when you find a pair of pants or clothing that you haven't worn in a while? You put it on, you stick your hand in your pocket, and boom, you find a $100 bill, right? That's an amazing feeling, right? The question is why? What's so unique about that experience that when you find this bill, it leaves you with this feeling of, I don't know, elation and happiness? And I want you to think about that. And as we're thinking about that, I want you to, let's kind of deal with this idea that my words actually matter. The idea that we have vows is not just that I'm making a promise, that there's something called a prohibition on the object versus the prohibition on the individual, the difference between a neder and a shu'ah. The idea that I can go ahead and say that this grain of sand or this kernel of wheat is now going to be used for a hektish. And at that moment, I can't use it for anything else but something for the Beit HaMikdash. How does that work? How are my words able to transform the essence of something that is whole, something that is simple, something that is just mundane, into something that is holy and profound? How does that even work? So there are three different categories of Kedusha, that of holiness, that Jews often speak about. One of them is called Kedushat Hazman, the idea there's something called holiness in time. How does that work? Well, there's something called Shabbat. What's happening tonight? And if you want to go ahead and celebrate Shabbat when right before, about an hour before sunset, you are taking Shabbat, you light your candles, and now you've activated Shabbat. But let's say I wanted to make Shabbat earlier because Shabbat starts too late. I wanted to start Shabbat at 5 o'clock. Can I do that? The answer is yeah. I have the power of extending Shabbat and making my Shabbat even longer. If I wanted to make Shabbat later, I don't want to end Shabbat by Tzeitzach Kochavim, the 3 stars out of night. I want to push my Shabbat till Sunday morning. Can I do that? The answer is yes. I could extend Shabbat until Tuesday. That's right. If you don't hear me answering my phone on Monday, it's because it's still Shabbat for me. I wish. But we have the power of extending the Kedusha of Shabbat into the week. How does that work? How is it that my words determine reality? I have the power of doing the same thing, by the way, with Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, Kedushat HaMakom. There's an idea of this holiness in place, holiness in space, that my words have the ability of expanding the holiness in the world around us. There's a whole entire Gemara that speaks about this idea, that if we wanted to go ahead and extend the boundaries of Jerusalem to include the gates of Damascus, we can do that. Right? We can expand the holiness of Israel as far as we want, as long as we're willing to govern ourselves with a expanded border that is holy. It's what we determine. Another example of this is, we have something called Kedushat Yisrael, the idea that there's some kind of intrinsic holiness to Am Yisrael, to the Jewish people, and that we have the power of expanding that holiness as well. Well, what does that look like? That looks like a convert, a non-Jew, deciding that he wants to become Jewish. Well, how does he do it? Just by getting a circumcision or just by going to the mikveh? The answer is no, that's not enough. There are plenty of people that are circumcised today, and that does not make them Jewish. There are plenty of people today that have immersed in a mikveh. They've gone to the beach. That certainly does not make them Jewish. So what is it that transfers them from one place to another, from one state to be a Gentile to a Jew? And the answer is that Am Yisrael are given the power of endowing or expanding their Jewishness into someone else once they've met certain criteria. It's them accepting certain beliefs and certain principles. It's them going through the motion of the mikveh, and if it's a guy, into the milah. But it's also about the rabbis, the Beit Din, saying that what you did is true, and it's real. And now you have something called Kedushat Yisrael as well. Fascinating that human beings have a power of changing the status of reality by just using their words. There's a rabbi, a real rabbi, not me, but a rabbi who is the leader of a congregation, has an extra added level of kedusha. Where does it come from? It comes from the people, the community. When the community go ahead and assign a person to a particular status, right? When we go ahead and we say this person is now the leader of the community, he ends up getting an added layer of holiness to him because of the community endowing him with this power. It's a famous story of a Hasidic rabbi who was a student, and eventually the rabbi passes away. The student is promoted to become the new chief rabbi of the town, local town. And he's, excited for his new position. He's walking around, and some other rabbi comes up to him and says, "Hey, so what's it like with your new position?" He's like, "Well, listen, it's not much. It's just people went ahead and decided that this is what they wanted, and their will becomes something uniquely different, and it empowers me to be the rabbi." And the rabbi, who was a little bit of a Harifi, said, that the intention of a fool and an imbecile isn't considered to be valid, right? So just because the people do this, if they don't know any better, who says that you have what you have? This concept of people having the power to endow holiness into objects is fascinating. And we have to ask ourselves, why is it here that Moshe is teaching these laws? Why is it over here in this parshiot that we're talking about the laws of Nedarim and the idea of Hektish and Kedusha and so on and so forth? Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight. When we know that when Bnei Reuven and Gad, when the tribes of Gad and Reuben are standing in the Jordan area, the Jordan region, they tell Moses, you know what? We're not really interested in going into the land of Israel. We have too much mikneh, we have too much cattle, we got too much money, and we're not ready to go into the land of Israel. We want to go ahead and take care and take advantage of the greener pastures out here in Jordan. But we're willing to go ahead and fight all the wars. We don't want you to think that we're chickening out and that we're not taking this responsibility seriously, but we'll do whatever we can to help out. Moshe acquiesces, but he says something very unique to them. He says to them, make sure, not a problem, make sure that you build houses for your children before you build pens for your livestock. What's he saying over there? He's saying something so profound. He's saying, you guys, I get it. Your motivation is money, right? And money is important, but does money define what you are? Do you live for making money, or do you make money to live? You decide what your reality looks like. You decide how your day looks like. But if all you do all day is for money, and you haven't really spent time being mindful of life, the most precious things in the world are things you can't buy. It's the time you spent with your children. It's the time you spent with your spouse. It's the family that you create. Those things are precious. Those things are eternal. You can't buy those things with time. So you have this reality where you have a word that has the power of transforming nature. So, for example, we have something called holiness in space. Everyone here can give me an example of holiness in space. Bet Knesset, a synagogue, has holiness in space. A Sefer Torah is an object that has holiness in space. If I was to ask you, what is the holiest place in the Jewish world, what would you say? Right? Most people would say, of course, Jerusalem. And I would say, no, not true. What is it, Marie?
The Kotel, I was thinking.
No, that's
or
Bet
HaMikdash.
No,
Bet HaMikdash.
try again. The holiest place in the Jewish.
In your heart.
Thank you. Well, close. It's true. Your heart, but even holier is your house. The house that you build. The houses that we have, the homes that we create, is where we are able to go ahead and build the highest levels of Kedusha today. It's where you have your Pesach Seder. It's where you have your Rosh Hashanah meal. It's where you're preparing for Yom Kippur. It's where Sukkot is happening. It's your home becomes the greatest vehicle for Kedusha in everything, in every aspect of our lives. So when we are thinking about the most inner chambers of our world, that is the greatest place of holiness. Why does that become holy? Why is our home holy? What's another example of holiness if you're going to think about the home? Another example of holiness is the union between husband and wife. There's sanctity in that relationship. Where does it come from? The sanctity of marriage comes from the fact that when you're under your chuppah, you say to the kala, the chatan says to the kala, Harei mekudeshes li b'tabat zo. Will you be consecrated to me with this ring? Why does that ring bring holiness? It's like big deal. It's just a ring. How does me saying those words endow my bride or a bride with kedusha, with holiness? So think of it like this. What is holiness? What does it mean to be holy? What does kadosh actually mean? And when you think of it in these terms, kedusha means to separate, to create a separation, to create a boundary. The parsha is talking about the masot, the boundaries, the different places that the Jewish people encamped in. They moved around back and forth, back and forth. The parsha is talking about this idea that words actually matter, that you think that your mind creates reality. No, your words shape your reality. How you speak about yourself shape your reality. My friends, we are starting tonight Rosh Chodesh Av. And in the month of Rosh Chodesh Av, the Mishnah says, Mishnichnas Av mima'atim besimcha. When the month of Av comes in, we mema'et, we limit, we contract our simcha. Why? Why do we say Mishnichnas Av? You're marbim what's it called? Sorrows. You're marbra in sadness, in atzivut. We don't say that. We're ma'atim besimcha. Simcha, the word simcha, if you rearrange it, it has the same letters as chamisha. There's a deep relationship to the word simcha and the number 5, right? Maybe that's where chamsa, chamsa, chamsa comes from. But simcha is the idea of expansiveness. When you are happy, you become elated, you're growing, you're expansive. And when you're sad, you're contracting and you're small and you go inside. Simcha is the idea of my desire to go and conquer and bring the world to me, my desire to go out and make the world a greater, better place. But this is not the time for that. This is not the time for elation. This is the time for contraction. So I spend this time by going inward again. I go into my inner journey, the inner work of my life, not a life that is defined by my parnasa, my work, my fun, the things that I really enjoy doing, but the harder stuff of me reflecting about, well, what does it really mean to be me? Am I just defined by my career? Am I defined by my family? What defines who we are? And that's an important question to ask ourselves. What are we? And where are we going? And how are we going to get there? Not just the money for the sake of money, right? Money is a tool. Money is not the goal. The goal is you. You're the goal. What are you doing to be the best version of you? That's what we are looking for. That's what these parshiot are about. Why are we having these conversations right here and right now? I think it's simple. You see, if you're going to go ahead and create a society, if you're standing out there looking at the expansiveness of the land of Jerusalem and Israel, you're looking at the landscape and you're taking it all in, and you're about to build a society, you're about to go ahead and create a whole new world, a government, a community, a culture. What's going to be the core value of that culture? And in Judaism, your core value is based on our or your words. We say, Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam. When God spoke, the world was. Words animated reality. When God endowed man with the spirit of God, when God endowed man with the spirit of God, he endowed him with the power of speech, because our words build and destroy worlds. What we determine, does gold have any real value in it? And the answer is no. It has no value. Sorry. Gold's value comes from society saying that it has value, but it doesn't have any more value than silver. We just determine that this thing has value. And the same is true with Kedusha, with holiness. We create, by the boundaries that we create, the words that we use, they animate what is holy or what is reality. If you have some time later today, spend some time Googling the rice test. What is the rice test? The rice test is you take a pot of rice, okay, and you divide this pot of rice into 2 different Tupperware. You take one Tupperware and you write on it all the most beautiful words you could think of: happiness, love, help, kindness, whatever the good words are. You take a second Tupperware, and in that second Tupperware, you write all negative words: hate, war, whatever you could think of. And then you wait. You wait a couple of weeks, and what you'll see is something fascinating. The Tupperware with the negative words, the rice in that Tupperware will become moldy. Whereas the other Tupperware with the positive words, you'll see no mold. There's something about our words that impact reality. And if we are standing out there building our communities, Moshe is telling us, guys, don't get lost in work. Don't get lost in your pursuit for money. Yeah, make it, have it, but don't forget the core values, right? It's what you say matters. How you say it matters. Your words matter. You're building a society. How do we build a society? With the words that we use. If we live in an environment where words mean nothing, we live in a world of chaos. If we want to build a future of happiness, of hope, of a world of integration and cooperation, it could only be built on words that matter, words that heal, not words that hurt. The Parsha is a reminder about how at the core of everything we're trying to accomplish, words matter the most. I'll give you an example of this. We know the first Beit Mikdash was destroyed because of the 3 cardinal sins: Gilui Arayot, Shfichat Damim, and Avodah Zarah. Right? Idolatry, idol worship, and murder. And the second temple was destroyed because of something called sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Well, what does that even mean, baseless hatred? I'll tell you what it means. Baseless hatred means that I no longer care about what you have to say. I no longer care about you as a person. You're irrelevant to me. The second temple, the rabbis say, that the second temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred, and baseless hatred is tantamount to murder, adultery, and idolatry. That is what baseless hatred is. When I no longer care to listen, the month that we're in, the month of Av, has a deep relationship to the month of Shmi'ah. Every month represents a different one of the senses, and the month of Av represents the sense of hearing, of listening. If the words we use are not profound, if the words we use are not going to go ahead and shape us, shape our reality, we're setting ourselves up for a world of unfortunate misery. The Parsha is about this one theme that is about how do we bring people to a place where they recognize that their words matter, that their words define reality. The words that we choose make such a big difference in the world that we want to live in. The question is, what kind of world do we want to live in? Are we prepared to go ahead and work on the words that we use? Are we prepared to go ahead and be more careful about the words that we share with our friends, or the words that we use when we're with ourselves, how we speak about ourselves? That all matters. If you want to build a society of greatness, you have to have boundaries. The first boundary that I could think of is your mouth, right? It's interesting. There's a Gemara in Yerushalmi that says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that if I could be there at the creation of the world, I would have asked God to make 2 mouths for men, right? For humanity. One mouth for chol, one mouth for mundane things, and the other mouth for kedusha, for holiness, for tivrei Torah and other things. And he says, after much contemplation, I realized that if we would have had 2 mouths, we would have 2 profane mouths and not 1 holy mouth at all. So at least with 1 holy mouth, we have the power of bringing kedusha into the world. But your mouth, look at it. You got your teeth, you got your lips. It's the only organ that's part of our head that has 2 boundaries. You have your tongue, you have your teeth, and you have your lips. Your ears, you just have your little flap over there. You can close it. Your eyes, you have your eyelid, you can close it. Your nose, you can close, right? But your mouth has a double gate to remind you that speak twice before you allow a word to come out of your mouths, my friends. You want to build a society, be careful about what you speak. Remember that your power comes from your speech. Your speech defines reality. I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach. You should be blessed with happiness, with simcha. Be blessed with the recognition that your words matter. How we speak matters. It is the foundation cornerstone of the world that we're trying to build for ourselves, our children, and the generations that come after us. If we can't speak properly, if we're not willing to hear what the other person says, we're in trouble. But this is the time of contraction. It's a time of going inside that inner journey, that time of going within yourself. The time of these 9 days is a time where we are meant to work on that inner voice, work on defining that relationship. Why is it so exciting to find that $100 bill? Because when you've discovered something and it's new to you again, it's meaningful. This is the time of the year when you could rediscover your unique relationship with the Almighty, with God. It's a time of the year we can rediscover the beauty in your own soul and the beauty with the people around you. Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov. God willing, we'll stand together at the very, very soon, before Tisha B'Av even, hand in hand, standing by the Kotel, watching those bricks being put back on the wall. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Chodesh Tov.